Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right into the sources you sent over, and today the big topic is that debate you hear everywhere: plant protein versus meat protein. Our mission, really, is just to cut through some of the noise, pull out the key stuff from your material, maybe find some insights that aren't immediately obvious. And honestly, right off the bat, there are some fascinating points in these sources, like this one. The average American eats over 220 pounds of meat a year.
That's a lot of meat.
It really is. But here's the kicker. Nearly 40% of people still apparently don't meet their daily protein needs. How does that even work?
The great question, isn't it? It kind of signals straight away that just, eating meat doesn't automatically mean you're covered for protein.
Yeah.
Or maybe getting the right kind of protein.
Exactly. And then you dig a bit deeper in the sources and find things like, well, the World Health Organization listing processed meats. We're talking bacon, sausage, deli cuts.
Yeah.
As Group 1 carcinogens. That's the same risk category as tobacco smoke for cancer.
Wow. Okay. That definitely makes you pause.
It does. It shifts the focus, right? From just how much protein to what kind and what else comes along with it,
Yeah,
health-wise.
Totally. And the picture gets, well, even more interesting when you add in that Harvard study you mentioned from the sources, finding that just swapping one serving of red meat daily for plant protein could cut the risk of early death by, what was it, up to 12%?
12%, yeah. So it's clearly complex. We've got high meat intake, but maybe not enough protein overall for some. Serious warnings about certain meats, and then plants looking pretty beneficial.
Makes your head spin a bit.
A little. So over the next bit, we're going to use your sources to try and build a clearer picture. We'll look at what complete protein really means, the actual health pros and cons of different sources, figure out the deal with popular powders like whey, soy, pea.
Right, for muscle building and all that.
And, crucially, how our choices hit the planet. So let's start with the basics. Why do we even need protein? We hear about it all the time, especially, in fitness. Well, what's its actual job?
Well, think of protein as like the body's main construction crew. It's fundamental, not just for building muscle, though that's key, but also for making essential things like hormones, enzymes,
Okay.
repairing tissues all over your body, keeping your immune system sharp. Your sources mention the standard guideline is around 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight daily.
Which, for a lot of people, isn't actually a massive amount day to day. But that number goes up for certain folks, right?
Oh, significantly. Yeah. If you're active, doing regular exercise, that baseline jumps. Could be anywhere from 1.2 to maybe 2.0 grams per kilogram. Depends on, how hard you're training, what your goals are.
And it's not just bodybuilders needing more.
No, not at all. The sources point out seniors often need more to help prevent muscle loss, which is a real issue. Pregnant women, too, need higher amounts. So yeah, that 0.8 is just a starting point for many.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's tackle this next bit, which can sound a bit technical, but seems really important according to your sources. Complete versus incomplete proteins. What does that actually mean in practice?
Right, it all comes down to amino acids. Our bodies need 20, but 9 of them we absolutely have to get from food. We can't make them ourselves. Those are the essential amino acids.
Gotcha.
A complete protein source is simply one that contains all 9 of those essential ones, in decent amounts. Think animal products. Chicken, beef, fish, eggs, dairy. They generally tick all the boxes.
So then plant proteins, they're usually incomplete. Is that the idea?
Mostly, yes. Individual plant sources, like, say, just beans on their own or just rice, might be low in one or more of those essential 9. That's why they get the incomplete label.
Okay, and this is where I think some confusion comes in based on the sources. If you're relying on these incomplete plant proteins, does that mean you're getting, lower quality protein or missing out?
Yeah, this is a really key point from your material, and it's often misunderstood. The short answer is no, not necessarily. Provided, and this is the important part, you eat a variety of plant foods throughout the day. Yeah. Your body maintains this kind of pool of amino acids.
Yeah.
So if you eat, say, lentils, which might be lower in one essential amino acid, and then later have some whole grains or nuts or seeds that are higher in that one, over the course of the day, you give your body all the different building blocks it needs.
Ah, I see. So it's not like that old idea where you had to meticulously combine like beans and rice in the same meal to make it complete.
Exactly. That idea is a bit outdated according to these sources. It's much more about the overall dietary pattern across the day or even a couple of days. Your body sorts it out if the variety's there.
Okay, that clears up a lot, actually. Less like a jigsaw puzzle at every meal.
Right. More about just making sure you've got all the different pieces available overall.
Good. Okay, let's dive into the health side then, the benefits and the risks mentioned in your sources.
We already touched on that big Harvard study.
The one with over 130,000 people.
Yeah, that one. Finding that swapping just one daily serving of red meat for plant protein dropped mortality risk by 12%. Pretty significant. And the sources suggest why. Plant proteins tend to be naturally lower in saturated fat compared to a lot of meats. Plus, they come bundled with fiber and antioxidants, stuff you just don't get from animal sources.
Right, fiber's a big one. That definitely makes a strong case for eating more plants. But your sources are balanced. They also highlight that meat isn't all bad nutritionally.
Oh, absolutely not. Animal proteins are really potent sources of certain nutrients that can be, let's say, trickier to get enough of from plants alone.
Like what?
Well, heme iron, for instance. The type of iron in meat is just much more easily absorbed by our bodies than the non-heme iron you find in plants.
Okay.
Then there's vitamin B12. It's crucial for nerves and DNA, and it's almost exclusively found in animal products naturally. And you get very bioavailable zinc from meat, too.
And what about things like whey protein for exercise? The sources mention that specifically.
Right. For muscle building, especially right after a workout when you want quick repair and growth, whey protein is often cited in your sources as one of the most bioavailable and anabolic options.
Bioavailable and anabolic. Can you just quickly unpack this?
Sure. Bioavailable just means how easily your body can actually absorb and use the protein. Higher bioavailability, more gets put to work.
Makes sense.
And anabolic refers to its ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, basically. Its power to kickstart that muscle growth and repair process.
Yeah.
Whey is known for being very effective at that.
Got it. Thanks. So, meat and whey have these advantages, but let's circle back to the risks the sources flag. We mentioned the WHO classification.
Yeah, the risks really highlighted in your material center on eating too much red meat, and especially processed meats. The links are there for increased risk of colorectal cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes.
And that group 1 carcinogen thing for processed meats?
It's stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize that putting things like bacon and deli ham in the same cancer risk category as asbestos and smoking. Doesn't mean eating one slice causes cancer, of course. But the association at population level is strong enough for that classification.
That parallel is really jarring. Okay, what about the other side? Potential downsides if someone goes fully plant-based and isn't careful.
Well, if you're not paying attention or supplementing appropriately, the sources do point out a risk of falling short on those nutrients we just mentioned. B12 is the big one, but also potentially iron, zinc, and certain omega-3 fatty acids like DHA and EPA.
So planning is key.
Definitely. You can get them from fortified foods or supplements, but you have to be intentional about it. Your sources also mention something called phytates in some plant foods.
Right, sometimes called anti-nutrients.
Yeah, although that term is a bit controversial. Basically, these compounds can slightly bind to minerals like iron and zinc in your gut, making them a little harder to absorb.
Is that a major issue?
Generally not for most people eating a varied diet, according to the sources. Things like soaking beans, sprouting grains, or just cooking vegetables significantly reduce phytate levels anyway. So it's usually managed through normal food prep.
Okay, so it really sounds like the takeaway from the sources isn't that one type is good and the other is bad, but that the type you choose, the amount, and how it fits into your whole diet, that's what really matters.
Exactly. It's all about the nuance, not simple labels.
Which brings us to another big piece of the puzzle in your sources, the environmental impact. How different are plant and meat proteins on that front?
Hugely different. This is where the data gets really striking.
Give us the numbers.
Okay, so your sources state that producing 1 kilogram of beef, it's about 2.2 pounds, emits roughly 27 kilograms of co-euro equivalents, greenhouse gases.
27 kilos. Wow. Okay, what about for plants? Like lentils?
For the same amount of lentils, 1 kilogram, it's less than 1 kilogram of co-euros emitted.
Less than one? Okay, that is a massive difference.
It really is. It puts the whole thing in a different light, doesn't it? Your sources also cite that study in Nature Food, suggesting that if people significantly shifted towards more plant-based proteins, it could slash their personal dietary greenhouse gas emissions by over 50%.
50% reduction just from changing protein sources more often.
Based on that study, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It positions the choice of protein as not just about personal health, but as having potentially a major environmental consequence, too.
So eating fewer animal products, especially red meat, is framed in the sources as potentially one of the single most powerful things an individual can do for their carbon footprint.
That's certainly the implication drawn from the data presented in your material, yes.
Okay. Wow. We've covered a lot. The why of protein, the complete versus incomplete deal, the health angles, the planetary impact, all based on the sources you shared. So let's try and synthesize this. What are the practical takeaways for someone listening right now trying to navigate this?
I think the main message coming through the sources is that for most people, balance is probably the way to go. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing. No need to go full vegan or full carnivore unless there's a specific reason.
Right. And what does that balance look like, practically speaking?
It could mean making some conscious swaps. The sources suggest things like maybe try replacing a couple of meat meals each week with meals based on legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, or perhaps tofu or tempeh.
Simple swaps.
Yeah. And when you do eat animal protein, maybe leaning towards leaner options like chicken or fish, more often than, say, fatty red meats or processed meats. That seems to be a consistent theme.
Okay. And what about protein powders for people who use those?
The advice seems to be look for quality. Prioritize brands that do third-party testing. That goes for whey, pea, soy, whatever blend you choose. It just gives you more confidence you're actually getting what's on the label without contaminants.
Good tip. And specifically for the lifters, the people really focused on muscle gain.
The sources seem pretty clear that both high-quality whey and well-formulated plant protein blends can work effectively. The really crucial factor, time and again, seems to be hitting your total daily protein target consistently from a variety of sources across your whole diet.
So don't sweat the specific source as much as ensuring you get enough overall and that it's good quality.
Pretty much. Whether it's chicken breast, a whey shake after the gym, or a big chili made with beans and lentils, the sources suggest they can all contribute effectively if the overall diet is sound.
Okay. So wrapping this deep dive up, it's clear protein isn't simple. It's not just one thing. It involves thinking about bioavailability,
How will you absorb it? Yeah.
ensuring you get variety, especially with plants, to cover all those essential amino acids over the day, and also considering what aligns with your personal health goals and as the sources really drive home, maybe your values around the environment too.
Absolutely. It connects a lot of dots.
Well, we've pulled a lot of great insights from your sources today. We really hope this helps you feel more informed navigating the whole protein discussion. And links to the studies and reports we mentioned will be available if you want to dig into the data yourself.
Definitely worth a look if you're interested.
So just to leave you with a final thought, building on everything we've discussed from the sources, this link between our plates, our health, and the planet, given how strongly dietary choices, especially protein, seem to connect to both your personal well-being and the global environment, how does understanding this debate maybe change how you view the simple act of deciding what's for dinner tonight?